worst things I find when listening to ASMR and I want to fall asleep is the light from the phone. So I'll have a little bit of the intro and then we'll have a blank screen for the rest of the video so you can leave your phone up and fall asleep. Headphones will be best, but if you don't want them, just put your phone on its back, the screen will be black, and I hope you enjoy. And without any further ado, let's get into the video. Thank you. Today's video is going to be 10 facts about the Battle of Britain. I've checked these facts, they are true. So sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy. It got its name before the battle started. The stage was set for the battle in 1940, when Nazi Germany launched a massive blitzkrieg against Western Europe. Hitler's armies overran Belgium, the Netherlands and France in a matter of weeks, leaving Britain as the lone standing Allied power. During a June 18th speech, Prime Minister Winston Churchill predicted a showdown with Germany when he said, "The Battle of France is over. I expect the Battle of Britain is about to begin." That's quite a well-known, quite a famous speech, at least if you're British. I'm not sure about the rest of the world, but yeah, it's well known, it's taught in schools here. Number 2. Hitler tried to convince Britain to surrender without a fight. That wasn't going to happen, was it? Despite being fresh of his lightning conquest of France, Hitler was wary of invading Britain. The island nation was protected by the English Channel, and its Royal Navy was superior to the German Kriegsmarine. He instead hoped that Britain would acknowledge her militarily hopeless situation and sue for peace. A small contingent of British politicians also favoured a compromise, but Winston Churchill brushed off talk of surrender and announced that Britain was determined to fight on. He rallied the public by characterising the coming battle as a struggle for national survival, and when the Nazis dangled the prospect of peace treaty in early 1940, he rejected it outright. It was only then that Hitler reluctantly approved plans for Operation Sea Lion, an amphibious invasion originally scheduled to unfold in mid-August. Well, as I said, the British were never going to surrender. Number 3. It was the first battle in history waged almost exclusively in the air. Hitler's plan to invade the British mainland hinged on Germany's first annihilating the Royal Air Force and winning air superiority over England. With this in mind, the fight for Britain transformed into an all-air contest between the Luftwaffe's bombers and Messerschmitt Bf-109s and the British Fighter Command's Hawker Hurricanes and Supermarine Spitfires, I think, my favourite vehicle ever made. The lines on it are stunning. Luftwaffe Commander Hermann Goering, I can't remember his name, initially believed he would easily sweep the RAF aside in just a few days. But the dogfights dragged on for 3.5 long months. By the time the battle ended in late October, Germany had lost more than 1,700 planes, nearly twice as many as the British. Okay, fact number 4. The battle included one of the earliest uses of radar in combat. While the Luftwaffe enjoyed an edge in total aircraft during the early stages of the battle, the RAF had a secret weapon in the form of radio direction finding, better known as radar. Shortly after the technology was developed, in the 1930s, the British built a ring of radar stations along their coastline. The chain-home stations were still primitive. A civilian observer corps was required to spot low-flying aircraft, but they nevertheless became a crucial part of Britain's strategy. By pinging approaching Luftwaffe and raiders with radar waves, the RAF could pin down their location and scramble fighters to intercept them, thereby robbing the Germans of the element of surprise. Nazi leaders never appreciated the importance of British radar, and the failure to degrade it allowed the RAF to consistently remain a step ahead of the Luftwaffe. Fact number 5. The Force squadrons included many foreign fighter pilots. Of the more than 2,900 RAF pilots who served in the Battle of Britain, only around 2,350 were British. Well, that's more than majority, isn't it? So, only is the wrong word there, but the rest were natives of the Commonwealth territories such as Canada, Australia, New Zealand and South Africa, as well as expatriates from Poland, Czechoslovakia, Belgium and other countries under Nazi occupation. There were even a handful of American pilots, most notably Billy Fisk, a 29-year-old sportsman who had previously won a gold medal for bobsledding at the Winter Olympics. The international contingent proved especially deadly in the cockpit. The Polish No. 303 Fighter Squadron downed 126 German planes during the battle, more than any Allied unit. The RAF's top-scoring ace was Joseph Franczek, sorry if I mispronounced that, a Czech aviator who single-handedly claimed 17 aerial victories. Fact number 6. Pilot exhaustion and personnel shortages plagued both sides. For men on both sides of the Battle of Britain, combat fatigue was as persistent as a foe as the enemy Spitfires and Messerschmitts. German morale sank to dangerous lows as the battle wore on, and British airmen were beaten down by grueling 15-hour shifts and constant Luftwaffe bombing raids on the airfields. Pilots often flew several missions a day on only a few hours sleep, and many took amphetamine pills just to keep themselves awake. In a bid to bolster its use of fighter force, the RAF eventually cut the training time for new pilots from 6 months to just 2 weeks. Some recruits even ended up on the front lines with as little as 9 hours experience in modern fighter planes. It's amazing, isn't it, what they went through back then. Yeah. Fact number 7. A British pilot famously rammed a German bomber to prevent the destruction of Buckingham Palace. During one of the battle's most frantic periods of fighting over London, RAF Sergeant Ray Holmes spotted the German Dornier bomber headed in the direction of Buckingham Palace. Holmes had already used up all his ammunition in an earlier dogfight, but rather than retiring, he steered his Hawker Hurricane straight at the enemy aircraft and rammed it with his wing. The blow sliced the Dornier's tail clean off and sent it plummeting into a nearby Victoria Station. Holmes's Hurricane was also wrecked, but he managed to bail out and landed dangling from the roof of an apartment complex. The astonishing incident was partially captured on film, and Holmes was hailed as a national hero, having saved the royal residence from potential disaster. The bravery back then was insane. I mean, I know it is now with our soldiers all over the world, but back then they were just children going to war, weren't they? Some was 16. Number 8. The Spitfire was not Britain's main aircraft. Thanks to its sleek lines and blistering speed, the Supermarine Spitfire has gone down in popular lore as the plane that saved England during the Battle of Britain. Yet Spitfires only made up a third of the British fighters during the campaign. The bulk of the RAF force consisted of the less glamorous Hawker Hurricane, an older wood and fabric fighter that was slower than the Spitfire, but reportedly sturdier and more forgiving in combat. While the two planes carried the same armaments, the Hurricane's superior numbers meant it was responsible for the vast majority of Luftwaffe losses during the battle. That's true, although plane-to-kill ratio, the Spitfire was vastly superior, but it just didn't have the numbers because there weren't as many of them. Number 9. Hitler's decision to bomb London turned the battle in Britain's favour. I believe this is because he neglected to keep up the pressure on the airfields. The Luftwaffe's bombing campaigns in England were initially restricted to military and industrial targets, but the strategy changed in September 1940 after the RAF launched a retaliatory raid against Berlin. The strike sent Hitler into a fit of rage. Ignoring the progress the Luftwaffe was making in attacking RAF air bases, he demanded they shift their focus towards erasing British cities from the map. The bombing campaign, now known as the Blitz, began on September the 7th, with a raid on London and a dozen more attacks following over the next several weeks. While the bombings took a sobering toll on British civilians, They also temporarily relieved pressure on the RAF, allowing it to repair its crippled airfields and refresh its pilots. The respite proved critical. When a Luftwaffe tried to score a knockout blow at a massive air attack on September the 15th, a resilient RAF intercepted them and downed roughly 60 aircraft. Hitler was forced to shelve Operation Sea Lion only a few days later. A lot of cities in Britain were destroyed in the Blitz, including my hometown of Plymouth. It was pretty much completely flattened, and it's all new concrete buildings now. It's a shame. It was quite a pretty city, and now it's like a concrete jungle now. It's not as nice. It's a shame. The last fact today, number 10, German bombing raids continued long after the battle had ended. The Battle of Britain fizzled out in late October 1940, when Hitler abandoned his quest for control of British airspace and turned his attention towards attacking the Soviet Union. The campaign was Germany's first major defeat in World War II, but it didn't mark the end of the Blitz against Britain. The Luftwaffe continued to conduct nighttime bombing raids over London, Coventry and other cities for several more months in a futile attempt to break Britain's fighting spirit. By the time the campaign finally ended in May 1941, some 40,000 people had been killed. Well, that's not the best fact to end on, but hopefully you found it informative or learnt something, or just enjoyed listening to it. And yeah, thank you for listening. I hope you've either drifted off or you just enjoyed it. Good night. Thank you.